Hello out there in YouTube world, Facebook world, social media world, the world, wherever you might be watching this video here today. Welcome to another episode of Musings with MGL. As always, give a like to the video if you like it. Give a subscribe to the channel if you like what I have to say. Click the little bell in the corner for ding, ding, ding notifications, comment, share, etc., etc. I really appreciate all the support in helping the channel grow. So today I'm going to talk about the most current and popular topic in the Second Amendment community and the legal community. And we're back to St. Louis man and woman who have guns and defend their house. So everybody knows the story of this. I'm not going to say their names. Their pictures are out there or whatever, but they're probably tired of the publicity. But everybody knows their name, okay? It's like Cheers. So they all know who these people are and what's going on with their case, and a lot of people have been asking me specifically, since I am, of course, a avid Second Amendment supporter and gun owner, and I'm also a criminal defense attorney in the legal system. So, of course, I like to consider myself uniquely informed to deal with this issue. So a lot of people have been asking me about what my opinions are on it, so I'm going to jump into the fray like all the other Monday morning quarterbacks out there and all the other talking heads online and give my opinion on this, hopefully with a little bit more knowledge than most of the idiots that you see all over Facebook or the news who are trying to comment and talk about this case. So here's my opinion on the St. Louis duo and their charges. The caveat I will give is a caveat that I always give, which is I don't know Missouri law, okay? I am based in Florida. I've said it numerous times, so everything that I tell you is based on what I think would happen in Florida and what I think Florida law would be applied to this, but it also is just my commentary about the politicization of the criminal prosecution process, the state attorney's office or district attorneys or prosecutors' offices in general, and what happens to cases when they hit the newspaper and just the overall concept of how prosecutions these days are no longer used for justice. Lots of times they are used for political gains and to make a political point. And in case you couldn't tell, that's what I think is happening here. So regardless of whether this is legal or not, so let's get a little bit into the legality of it. As always, and again, I don't know what Missouri's law is, but most of them are written generally the same way. So specifically here in Florida, of course, you can only use deadly force or threat of deadly force if you are in imminent fear of death or great bodily harm. Okay, that's the standard in Florida, and it's probably a similar standard in Missouri and most states across the country. So the question is, in this case, were these two people, was this couple in fear of death or great bodily harm or whatever the standard is in Missouri, but let's just go with that general concept, that they felt the need to come out of their home onto their property and brandish their firearms to these people. So what they are charged with, just to get specific here in Missouri, what they are actually charged with is a crime that they call in Missouri, I need to go up, unlawful display of a weapon. Okay, so here it is. Just expand a little bit here. I don't edit on this channel, remember, I just go. So unlawful use of a weapon, okay? So that's what they call it in Missouri, unlawful use of a weapon. It's similar to what we would call here in Florida unlawful display of a firearm. We have a statute here called unlawful display of a firearm, and that's kind of what that falls into. Brandishing is like the generic term that you hear people say, but it's not actually a real term. That's kind of a made-up one. So you're usually looking at brandishing or improper exhibition of a firearm or unlawful use of a firearm, as they call it out in Missouri. So that's what they're currently charged with, okay? And anytime you use a weapon, though, regardless of what the charge is, the defense is always going to be self-defense, or that I needed to use it to protect myself, my property, whatever the law says. Now, the problem with their particular case is going to be this, and it's all going to be factual, and it's all going to come down to what can be proven in court by whatever the sides are, whether it's the alleged victims, meaning the protesters, or the defendants who have been charged with this. And was what was happening on their property to the point where they felt like they were in fear of imminent bodily harm or death or whatever the standard out there is. And that's all going to be fact specific. I mean, if people are looking to me to give a yes or no answer, thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm not going to do that because I think in all of these type of cases, you need to know every single bit of facts in the case. So, for example, the husband gave an interview, and during the interview, he said that people in the protesting groups or the rioters, whatever you want to call them, but people in the group of people out there were shouting things at him and his wife, such as, "We're going to kill you. We're going to sleep in your home after you're dead. We're going to kill your dog." He stated specifically on one of the interviews that somebody had 2 magazines full of ammunition. He called them clips because you could tell by looking at the video that they're not super firearm people, so they're using the wrong terms. But he said that one of the individuals was holding 2 magazines and was clapping him in his face, saying, "These are for you. The next one's going to be for you." And they were actually branding loaded magazines. Now, none of the videos that we've seen showed any of these. So there's either no video to corroborate this. It either didn't happen, there is no video to corroborate it, or there is video to corroborate it, but the people who have it aren't going to turn it over to law enforcement or the media because it doesn't support their side and it makes these people look like the bad guys. So there could be video out there. They're just refusing to show it. So that's kind of where their position is that that's what these people were doing. Now, if you can convince a jury, and if that's actually true, that hundreds of people were coming onto their property saying these things and displaying magazines and bullets or whatever, then yes, I think that it's a pretty slam dunk case that they were justified in doing what they did. Now, of course, the people in the group claim that nobody was doing that. All they were doing was peacefully marching from down his street, basically, to where the mayor's house is. Now, there's some dispute about whether you can get to the mayor's house that way or whatever. And, of course, they had to break a gate to come into the neighborhood. I don't think they broke a gate to come onto the property of these people, but they did have to break through a private gate to just come into the gated community neighborhood. So their position is we were just marching down the street to get to the mayor's house, and all of a sudden these wackos came out and started pointing guns at us with no reason to do so. So it's going to be a fact-specific case. If you believe the homeowners, it would be a not guilty because what they're saying, in my opinion, would rise to the level of fear that would allow them to do what they did. If you believe the protesters or the people, whatever you want to call them, I don't want to get yelled at for calling them things that people say that they're not. I'm going to call them protesters because it's just easier. So if you believe those protesters, those group of people, that they weren't doing anything but marching down the street and they came out with their firearms, then it's probably unlawful use because they're going to have a hard time articulating that they were in reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily harm or whatever the standard, again, is in Missouri, simply by people going down the street. Even if they were maybe coming onto their lawn to get to where they were going, if they weren't actually coming up to their house, trying to break in their windows or saying these things like, "We're going to murder you and live here when you're dead," then that's not justification for going out there and waving your firearms around. So in order to make a fully formed decision, you would almost have to look at every piece of video. You'd have to interview everybody that was out there. You'd have to look at all the interviews that the defendants were claiming and make a decision. I don't believe personally that happened in this case. I believe that this is a political prosecution. Whether you believe the people should have had their firearms out there or not, I think that there is enough doubt here to warrant not filing the charges. So if your position is, as what mine is we don't know, it's just as equally plausible what the protesters are saying as it is what the homeowners are saying, what the defendants are saying. Or we can't dispute what the defendants are saying, but we also can't prove what the protesters are saying. Like it's a he said, she said almost. There's a bunch of people there, but it kind of comes down to it could go either way. We don't have enough facts to know which way that it goes. Well, when you have a case where you don't have enough facts to know which way it goes, that case should not be filed. Because the burden of proof, of course, is on the state and the prosecutors to prove the case above and beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt. So if you have a toss-up case, then by definition, it should not be filed. But prosecutors, a lot of them, especially elected political ones, we have elected ones here in Florida. They probably have elected ones or appointed ones out there. And, of course, even the appointed ones are appointed by whoever the elected governor is. They all have political agendas, and they all like to push political agendas, and they all like to prosecute certain people in order to prove a point. When you look through a lot of the quotes in this article and a lot of other articles that you'll see, they talk about things like, "Oh, we can't have, this type of crazy Wild Wild West stuff in our city. People should be free to protest without being in fear that people are going to come out and brandish firearms. People shouldn't have firearms in these certain situations." So a lot of this is 100% a political prosecution. Even if you believed everything that the protesters are claiming or what the video shows, you really have no way to refute what the defendants are saying. And given the heightened nature of everything that's going on in the country right now, it would be easy to see why these people did what they did. It's not going to be considered to be an overreaction by at least half of the country who's going to say that it's okay for them to do what they did. So again, you're now looking at the political thing. Half the country thinks that they're crazy gun nuts, and the other half of the country thinks that they're protecting their home against the crazy protesters. So in a case like that, by filing charges, you're actually ramping up the situation. You're not de-escalating it. As a prosecutor, if you really want to protect your community, you should de-escalate these type of situations and not escalate them. By going after these people, by prosecuting them, by making it a more public issue. Now you've got the Attorney General of the state saying that they're going to file something against the prosecutor to prevent them from it. You got the governor already saying that he's talking about issuing a pardon in the case. So now you've taken this situation, and instead of de-escalating it and moving past it, you've actually escalated it, and now it's become a bigger issue than it was before. It's going to become a bigger political issue. It's going to stay in the spotlight. It's going to further drag down the city of St. Louis into this nightmare that it's found itself in the middle of, like so many other big cities in the country. And you're actually counterproductive to what you claim as a prosecutor that you're trying to do, which is establish some sort of order and protect people who live in your city. So that basis alone clearly indicates that this is a political prosecution that should not be going forward. Second Amendment or not Second Amendment, this should not be going forward for political reasons or and more specifically as a criminal defense, for factual reasons, because you have disputed facts in this case. And when you have disputed facts as a state attorney, a lot of people will say, well, that's what the jury is to decide. No, because the state attorney's office is the gatekeeper for that type of stuff. When you have a case that you cannot figure out who's telling the truth, then it should be declined. It should not be filed on, because you have the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the highest burden we have in our legal system. You have the burden to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is, again, extremely high. So if you have disputed facts in a case, you're never going to be able to meet that burden. It's not, maybe one side's more believable than the other. That's not how it works in the criminal justice system. And so when you throw in the clear politics that are going on here, I believe that this is a political prosecution. I tend to believe these people when they testify. I've seen their interviews. I've read a lot of their stuff. Based on some of the video that I have seen, it was a very heightened, dangerous situation. They claim that they called police and were told basically that they were on their own. They called several private security companies and told that they were on their own. So given all the facts about what was going on here, I do believe that they were probably justified in the actions that they took. You could make an argument that they went overboard and maybe they don't fit the specific definition of it, but just looking at the facts of the case, I believe that they were probably justified, certainly under Florida law, and they would have a hard time being convicted down here in Florida. However, I do believe that it is clearly a political prosecution, and I am 100% against political prosecutions always and always. So I don't know what's going to happen with these people. I sense that there probably may be a pardon or something that comes down from the governor, but they are currently now being used as pawns in this greater thing that's going on in the country right now. And I don't think the criminal justice system should ever be used, and people who are charged with crime should never be used as political pawns in a situation that's going on like this. That is not what the criminal justice system is for. So those are my musings on it. I was wanting to keep it a little bit shorter today, but looking at the clock, I looked a little bit longer. But it is a very important case. It is a very important situation that's going on there and in our country. So that's my thoughts on it. Again, as always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, comment, etc. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to talk it out with you. But hopefully this de-escalates itself somehow. I'm hoping the governor maybe just issues them a pardon real quick, gets the case out of the news, gets it off the paper. We don't need this kind of crap right now with the Second Amendment and the Second Amendment crowd. We don't need these people to be poster childs for us. I think this situation just needs to be de-escalated and moved on, and we can switch our focus to the larger issues that are going on here in our country right now. So thanks for watching as always. Stay safe, stay vigilant, stay healthy, stay open if you can. I'll throw that one back out there since things are starting to close down again. And as always, please carry on.